Coin traders, what is going on? Thanks for joining me for the show. Looking at Hedera HBAR on that ticker. Big news announcement out of the team at Hedera, and essentially we know that we are seeing the registering for an HBAR ETF. So this is what's causing a lot of the price spike right now. A lot of excitement and obviously a lot of optimistic outlook for the future here, especially we know that with Trump being elected as president, making statements like pulling Gary Gensler and also seeing signs that Gary Gensler is going to be resigning at the end of the year. We know that this could be a very good positive thing for crypto, and not just HBAR, but probably we will expect a lot more different types of altcoin ETFs to be here coming in this upcoming year. So, but would definitely anticipate start seeing a lot more ETFs, which would bring in a lot more institutional and obviously exposure to a lot of different investors, not just ones that want to invest in spots on crypto exchanges and such. Now, checking out the market cap here, we do know that this announcement has caused a very nice spike and price pump for Hedera. So we are seeing it push up to the number 39 spot currently right now based off this news, and a market cap which is just over 2.5 billion. So we will be keeping an eye on this to see how this type of news-driven pump does end up playing out and whether or not it does start to cause a little bit more longer-term growth and gains. But nonetheless, the action has definitely been good for the setup, and we've already had a very nice setup playing out for HBAR, and essentially after finding a bottom and a lot of nice upside days breaking through these exponential moving averages, one of the things that's a good sign right now is just how close these exponential moving averages are on the daily to flipping full bullish right now, where we do have the 12 on top, 26, and then the 50 on bottom. So with this nice, extremely big bullish volume bar, know that a lot of price action to the upside is to be expected, but typically what we have in a lot of these news-driven pumps is that the hype does start to fade off pretty quick. So whether or not we can see it sustain is going to be something that we keep our eye on. But what we will be looking at is that how we actually see a back test of these exponential moving averages. That is what we want to see ultimately, because right now, if we do go ahead and zoom out, we're breaking above a very nice trend line here. And essentially what we have is a very big resistance and support zone that has been previously resistive. So breaking through it right now on the current daily, would love to see the current candle close above both of these levels, both at 0.0625 and 0.0642. So on the chart, looking left, big point of resistance here back in September before pulling back to our trend low. Before that, basically had a very nice resistance point, which also aligned in between the 26 and 50 period EMA. So the thing about the recent move in September is that we actually saw a break of these exponential moving averages, but ultimately on the back test couldn't end up holding and confirming those as support, and that's where we did see a little bit more of that downside action. So now that we are breaking above and obviously have a lot of magnitude on top of these EMAs, so price gain all the way up to the top of this candle here, 46% to the upside here, obviously to the current about 24-25%. So plenty of opportunity to actually see a retracement hold in this instance, because looking back previously, if we look at how much actually we were on top of the exponential moving averages, we weren't on top that much. So for example, we were only looking at about a 13% upside. So a pullback was not necessarily that hard to do, especially when we saw how low the bottom was already on top. So now having a complete cross will actually be a much better sign and signal, because we didn't get that back in September as well, especially after failing to hold this level as support. So end of July, we saw this zone be very supportive too before the ultimate end of the capitulation that we saw pretty much at the start of August, where we actually didn't overall get that much more pullback. So a very long period here of prolonged accumulation where we actually saw a lot more dip buying and a little bit more stabilization. So plenty of time in an overall sideways channel, more or less. And now, especially after breaking two previous high attempts, looking like a very good sign of upside, especially with some news-driven catalysts here behind HBAR. So now zooming out a little bit farther, still on the daily, you want to look at the last time we had a big spike like this, because what we end up happening a lot is that we do have these big, massive daily candles, and then immediately after, like we said, if it's only a quick, short hype event based on speculation from a news event, then typically we do get a sell-off and a retracement pretty substantially, pretty quick. So if we do see that end up playing out, then that's pretty much going to be a scenario that we're looking out for, which is kind of why we need to see a nice close on top of this zone, and then the ability of the bulls to actually defend this overall zone pretty much right around 6.5 cents, because then that'll confirm that these previous periods of resistance and also this previous period of support are actually going to be technically relevant, and that's going to confirm a lot nicer upside move, especially confirming this level of support. Obviously, blowing below that would lead to a test of some of the previous lows and the previous resistance point. Specifically, the next one that we would be looking at would actually be, come on, right around the 5.7. So that's still potential for seeing a back test and retracement down to this level that would confirm these exponential moving averages. Obviously, that's not going to be a bad sign, confirming this as previous support, or excuse me, previous resistance now as support, and obviously on top of these exponential moving averages. Still is a good technical sign as well, but obviously the most bullish sign that we could see is still a nice rally close on top of the 6.5 cent zone, and then confirming and backtesting that in the future coming candles as a very nice support where we could see sideways trading, allowing these exponential moving averages to catch up, and then finally continuing on to the upside from there. Obviously, based on crypto conditions, there's still the possibility of potential. We could still see a little bit more of a run, especially if we do get big volume. But typically, when we do see big volume coming in for HBAR so far in the past, we do know that it is very short term, and typically that does lead to a pullback. So that's going to be something to be very mindful and aware of. And especially right now with Bitcoin and some of the other cryptos being pretty far in the overextended category, we do know that we are going to be due for a pullback here. So obviously that would impact HBAR as well. Now flipping over to the 2-day chart, and we're still kind of in a very nice bullish setup because if we look at the most recent 2-day candle that printed here, we're actually closing on top of this biggest resistance line, which is the 50-period EMA. Now notice the last time that we actually did test this level of this 50-period EMA, we did get rejected, so a very nice kickoff bounce and ultimately push prices back down below, holding this as a very nice resistance point. So the fact that now on the 2-day we have blown through a lot of this previous test of resistance, both in between the 12 and 26 and also in between the 26 and 50, very nice sign right now on this setup, especially with a lot of this very nice increasing bullish volume day over day on this 2-day chart. So the last time we were in a setup similar was in October of last year, right when the nice spring cycle started. So as we can see, if we go ahead and zoom in on this area, what we had is a very nice bullish break on top of the 50. More or less sideways trading, confirming the 50 period, or excuse me, all of the exponential moving averages as that very nice supportive guide, and ultimately allowing that to push prices back to the upside. So we could ultimately end up seeing that play out in this instance and situation here. So ultimately, regardless of where this candle actually closes, we know that we're already putting in a price high that's very much on top of all these previous resistance points. So we are looking very nice and bullish, and likely in that instance, especially since the lows now we're coming in at 4.125 cents, that's pretty much going to be a great opportunity to allow the price to pull back, set a higher low, because I'm not expecting a lower low at this point. So pretty much in any situation, we're going to see a higher low coming to put in. Ideally, it would be on top of those levels like we talked about, confirming those exponential moving averages as support as well as the previous resistances. And in that instance, that would also put in a higher low as well, continuing the action and trend now to the upside. Now flipping over into the weekly chart here, obviously still in a bearish weekly setup based on the exponential moving averages right now, and seeing resistance come in for this weekly candle in between the 26 and 50. So trying to struggle to break above this 50. If we could see that, that'd be a very good sign to allow these 12 and 26s to start rounding off their bottoms and actually seeing prices sitting on top of the exponential moving averages, which would allow path of least resistance here to start moving back to the upside. Now, do want to look at the technical indicators, specifically the RSI Relative Strength Index, because right now what we have is a very nice trend change on top of the exponential moving average for this RSI. So when the RSI is below this exponential moving average, which is this yellow line on the RSI, then pretty much we know that the trend is still impacted just like with price. So when RSI is below the exponential moving average, we are looking at a downtrend, and it is easier for the RSI to stay on the downside. Conversely, when we do have a nice flip, especially when we have a back test, it's a lot better of a setup and scenario, especially when we get this follow through after the test. Now with the RSI and the exponential moving average, we never see a complete, well, almost never see a complete touch, and having this be an accurate guide. So typically when we do see little blips below the exponential moving average, that's not a bad sign, and we still could consider that a very nice back test and confirmation of this exponential moving average as being that guide. So do still have a lot more anticipation that this price is still going to get pushed to the upside, and especially in the coming weeks here. So we still have just shy of a full 5 days, or just over 5 full days of trading here still on this weekly candle. So with that, we're almost at the same amount of volume that we saw last week. So expecting a lot more volume to be coming in, especially with this good bullish news announcement, obviously. So next week, we are going to see how the volume does play out. Hopefully we can get another week of follow through would be the best case scenario for the bulls to show 3 week on week with increasing bullish volume here. Overall, though, definitely a huge, good, nice win for Hedera here. So congrats to the HBAR bulls. Obviously, anytime we can start to get legal considerations for an ETF for any type of crypto, it's good for the space as a whole. But obviously, we will start seeing these trickle in. I am expecting for other altcoins as well. But right now, to have HBAR being one of the front runners, especially in this new upcoming bull cycle, is going to be a very good sign. So pretty much assuming that the bottom is in, and even if we do see pullbacks and retracements from here, I do expect confirmation of those previous resistances as support, and then we will be seeing a much nice, great cycle. So if we actually go ahead and zoom out and talk about potential targets now for the all-time high, then what we're looking at is a pretty good upside potential. So up to the all-time high right now, which would be almost just shy of 60 cents, pretty much right around 58.3, would be a gain of 770%, or about almost 8-9x move. So definitely a lot of great potential, especially if this ETF does get approved. We will see a lot more greater gains and higher highs than the previous all-time high, as proven by what we experienced out of Bitcoin. And now just waiting on the ETFs for some other coins to come in as well, especially after we've already had approval for an Ethereum ETF. But so with that, that is going to go ahead and wrap up the show for today on Hedera HBAR, HBAR on the ticker. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. As always, make sure to post your questions, comments, issues, disagreements, all that fun stuff down below in the comments sections. Do love getting back to each and every one of you. If you're not currently following me over here on Twitter or X at coin_trades is the handle. Do look forward to chatting with everyone over on Twitter or X. That's going to do it for now, though, so stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.